I'm named after my uncle, who was killed in Gaza in 1955 in battle. Sharon was his battalion commander. You know, in Israel we don't have a constitution, we don't have a strong party system, but we have strong personalities who carry the political system on their shoulders for ages. And Sharon was no exception. So if you look at these people's careers, you can always find the time when they said one thing or did one thing, and then 10 or 15 or 20 years later did the opposite. You saw any ideology as naive and stupid, because it may bother you when you feel that you know what's the right thing to do. Why bother about what you were saying 10 years before or doing 10 years before? That was then. And now the circumstances are different. You know, people in my generation, we grew up under the shadow of the First Lebanon War, which was, it happened when we were just finishing high school and about to go to the army. And Sharon was, to us and to many other Israelis, was the demon. And after almost 20 years, he comes back as the savior, as the only guy you can trust, as the guy who can fix the country's problem, who could defeat the Intifada. All the way from platoon commander throughout his term as defense minister, Sharon's policy was very simple. Israel is surrounded by Arabs who are keen on destroying it and killing as many Jews as possible, and the only way to defeat them is by using force and more force and being as aggressive as possible. As prime minister, he behaved very differently. And obviously, this is the Sharon that I like to remember, and the Sharon legacy I like to cling to, which is always be aware of the limits of power and the limits of using force. And if you have to do it because Israel is attacked, because it's really the lesser evil at any given situation, do it only after you're convinced, and you're able to convince both the Israeli public and the American government that this is the right thing to do at this moment. So Sharon, the prime minister's legacy, was prudence. Sharon was good for Israel because he was the only leader capable of defeating the Second Intifada and returning the sense of security and stability to Israelis. I don't see anyone else who wouldn't crack under the pressures of the Second Intifada. And then he was the only Israeli leader who could demolish 25 settlements without violence. And you know, there's still no effort to rebuild settlements in Gaza. Now clearly it's still a very controversial move, because there are many who argue that Sharon's withdrawal from Gaza paved the way for Hamas takeover, for rocket attacks, for a lot of bad things that happened afterwards. But I'm still among the minority who believes that this was the right thing to do, that the settlements in Gaza were wrong, that many people were killed on both sides just to keep them there, and that regardless of the question of whether could it be handled in a different way or more coordinated with the Palestinian Authority and so on, I believe he did the right thing. So on both counts, I think he was a good prime minister for Israel.